Truth. Broadcast Network. Truth. Broadcastnetwork.com.
All right, so welcome back to another broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I'm Death to the New World Order. And tonight we're going to be speaking with Mark Howitt, who is not only a frontline activist, but he's actually marching across Canada in order to, well, I mean, it sounds like you're going to, work towards confronting Stephen Harper with questions from people that you're running across on your journey. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I went to his house there not too long ago.
Oh, okay. And how did that go?
Well, I was confronted by massive gates with pike gates and video cameras all over, all along the property, tripod cameras, so many video cameras I couldn't even count them all. And at the gate, they wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't even accept the letter that I wrote to deliver to his house. I was confronted by an RCMP officer who was very nice. He was actually supportive of what I was doing. He said that the world is corrupt and full of greed and hate, and he thought that I was doing a noble thing. But he wasn't allowed to accept the letter, so he went inside to his officer's booth and got me the address where I could mail the letter to, so that it would get to the proper person. It wouldn't be Stephen Harper, I'm sure. He's probably got a whole bunch of people that scan letters and filter them and stuff. So
right, yeah. All right. Well, just by way of introduction, Mark Howitt is the filmmaker of New World Order Domino Effect, among other things. And I took a look at that the other night, and one part really stuck out to me, which is that scene where it's showing the starving Africans and the filmmaker there. I mean, it's so unbelievably disappointing. And we hear about all this mad amount of money that's allegedly going to aid the Africans, but I mean, what's really going on here? How do we still have this situation? Was that a scene that you pulled from somewhere else? I mean, what kind of information do you have on that?
well, that was a group that went out to Africa actually to document it. They were a religious group, a Christian group that were funded to go out there and document that and make a video about it to spread awareness about the starvation going on there. But we still hear about it. It still exists. And why is that? It's because the charity programs and all these groups and organizations that are put together to address the issues are actually profiting from the market. It's a very profitable business, and that's what they're doing. They're profiting from the donations that are given by the good people to try to help the world. And you're not only seeing this with the starving African children donations and things like that with to aid those people over there, but you're also seeing this in the cancer industry, Run from the Cure, breast cancer. All those things are big scams who are sucking big money out of the people who are donating their hard-earned money to try to find a cure for cancer, when there already is many cures, natural cures, that are suppressed and not profitable to the industry. So they choose to disregard these cures and keep on promoting chemotherapy and surgeries and harmful remedies that are just going to make you more sick with new illnesses or increase the disease. So that's what's going on. It's a big scam, and people are not aware of it yet. They haven't really dug enough to find the truth.
Okay, Mark. Now, just by way of introduction, so are you saying your March of Freedom is done, that you've come to a conclusion with that? And how, what else would you like to mention before we, move forward?
Well, it's not done yet. I still have to go to Moncton and Halifax along this way. So there is a bit of distance still to cover, but it is coming close to an end. I left my hometown of Sudbury, Ontario, and I walked as far as I could until I got to until I got some pretty bad injuries on my feet. There's some videos that are on Facebook that show that, and I had to go to the hospital, and then they told me that I needed to take a bus to Barrie, which got me to the 400 highway. So the 400 and 401 highways, which is what connects all of Southern Ontario to all the major cities and stuff, I couldn't walk on those highways. It's illegal and very dangerous to walk on them, especially when you're pulling supplies behind you. So I had to get rides around that area and bus rides and stuff. So I did stop in a lot of communities, though, like tons of communities, and talked with lots of people about what's going on and tried to learn about solutions to these problems and figure out what really needs to be done to change things for the better.
Okay, and your movie NWO Domino Effect, talks about solutions as well. Are there any in particular that you'd like to go over here?
Well, a lot of them deal with the truth, which is awesome. You have the Truth Broadcast Network. You're broadcasting the truth. So I commend you for your efforts in spreading awareness about these issues, because it's really important that we do learn the truth about what's going on in the world. And the media is lying to us most of the time. They do give half truths out in their stories and stuff, but essentially they have an agenda. Look what's going on in Syria right now. We're about to enter one of the largest wars in history, in human history, because of the technology we have, and nobody cares. People are too busy wondering why Ben Affleck is playing Batman and why Miley Cyrus is naked on stage. That's what people care about. And even the CNN person was saying that that's what's getting likes, is people, the Hollywood stars they choose and they select and they breed and they put in for us to absorb and spend money on. So we're avoiding all the problems while the problems are taking place, and it's pretty sad. I am noticing a big change, though, where people are waking up and starting to be a bit more concerned about this stuff, which is really good to see. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on, and it all boils down to the truth. We got to find the truth here. We got to figure out what's really going on, and once we find the truth, that's what's going to set us free. So with the cures being suppressed, that's a truth that we should know about. The harmful nuclear programs that exist, warfare, like war should not be solved with war. That's a bottom line. You can't solve violence by using violence. It's never worked in the past. It's just escalated and caused more deaths. So there's a lot of problems in the world, and I find the solutions all rely on the truth, really.
Right.
They all, you just boil it down, it's very basic and primitive, the truth. But they put out all these things that make it really technical and hard to figure out, and it distracts the mind. They love using distractions, and it keeps people away from finding the truth. But once you find the truth, you know it's the truth, and that's what they call the rabbit hole. Once you start digging, you can't get out. You just keep going for that truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And they say that the first step to solving a problem is admitting that you have it. And as we have people going around pretending that we were attacked by the Muslims on 9/11 or whatever else, they're just ignoring the fact that they even have a problem. You can't solve it. But I mean, it's somewhat encouraging to see how few people support this military action in Syria. And it does seem like the world is waking, yet I mean, they're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. What do you think will happen long term here? Will the people recognize, well, it doesn't matter what we think, it doesn't matter what we want, these evil people are going to go ahead and send our sons and our daughters overseas to die killing innocent people? I mean, do you think that this is going to have any long-term impact?
Definitely. If they do start war, if they do actually send bombers over there and they do drop the bombs, then yeah, there's going to be some serious problems on an international level. You've got China and Russia apparently walking out of the United Nations meeting saying, this is ridiculous. And I've been saying it all along, even for the last few months, I've been saying that China and Russia are allied together. And then who do you have allied with them? You have North Korea, and then you'll likely have Iran and Syria, and then you have a lot of other organizations in the Middle East that are totally against westernization and globalization and colonization. So they're going to fight for their homelands, and you're going to have a huge, massive war that's going to outbreak, and it's going to be like United Kingdom, United States, and their allies, which involves, unfortunately, Canada, because we have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Everything's royal over here, the Royal Museum, royal this, royal that, because we're still in debt to the crown, just like America. So that's why UK is making the first move here. They're the ones who are being more aggressive in the situation and saying these aggressive statements, saying that, yeah, we've already made up our minds, you know what I mean, about Syria. And what's really going on there is the rebels, the so-called rebels in Syria, are backed by the same people. They're backed by CIA, Al-Qaeda, Mossad. All these groups are linking together and creating this turmoil over in Syria to try to overthrow the government, and they're using propaganda techniques to say that Assad is gassing his people. that he's killing all these people using chemical weapons and all that stuff. But you're getting all these intelligence leaks coming out lately that are saying that that it wasn't. It was actually the rebels that were using chemical gas. And David Icke actually has a very good film called Syria: The Truth. The first part of that is really good in showing what's really going on, because there's a lot of statements right from Syria, and the people are saying like the Assad is good. You know, that's not what's going on here. The Western media is twisting it all around and lying to everybody. So,
Right.
and that's
Well,
from a while ago. That's an old video. So,
I wonder because, I'm a Christian, and they generally believe that everyone is born evil. Everyone is born with sin in their heart. But I mean, my experience is that people, by and large, are literally trained. They're taught to do acts of evil or to be abusive to the people around them by the television, by the government, by the control structure at large. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
you are absolutely right, my friend. Nobody is born evil. We are all born as babies. We are all born very innocent. We're born to laugh and smile and cry when we need food and water. And the government and these corporations and the banksters and the elitists, the globalists, as you could call them, they learned this a very long time ago. Like thousands of years ago, they learned this, that we need food and water to survive. And then they started charging us for it and making us work for it. Otherwise, we would go without, unless, of course, we go off the grid and start our own culture, our own society, community that doesn't need that. But they don't like us doing that either. They'll come in and take the land. You have to. They'll try to stop you. You know that you will meet some roadblocks if you choose that path. They don't make it easy for us to just get up and walk out of here. You know, to
Right.
live a different life. And you're absolutely right, though. Nobody is born with evil in their hearts. It is something that gets developed over time with the individual, with what they see, the communities they live in, the crimes that happen, people hating them, just the emotional abuse that exists within society these days and that are accepted because they're promoted by the media and the TV shows, movies, music, all that stuff. So you've got all these propaganda, brainwashing mechanisms coming in and shaping the individual and causing them to be evil. And if you had the opposite of that and you had a world of love and compassion, sharing, unity, you would actually see the world change to that direction. But they don't want that. They want to start wars and drop bombs on Syria and all sorts of bad things. So,
Right. Now, you have kind of a ZZ Top kind of appearance to you. Would you call yourself a naturalist? I mean, are you? I mean, we know people pull out of the system. Are you a off the grid kind of person, right?
no, I have a family. I'm at home. You know what I mean? I have children. They go to school, more so for the social aspect of things, to meet friends and, to learn education and stuff. And that's the way society is built too, that you do have to go and get a job to support your family or daycare for your kids and all that stuff while you're at work. It's a very intricate system that they've designed for us to be ensnared in from birth. So it is really hard to get out of that. I do plan on eventually transitioning to that state when I can do so. It does take money though. You'd have to save up for it and pay for a property and to build your own home, etc. But I see more and more people actually wanting to take this path in life where they do want to step outside and live off the grid. And in fact, tomorrow, from where I am now, I'm just outside of Fredericton in a place called Douglas. I'll be going to another little community called Chipman. And this just was sprang upon me yesterday, actually. The idea to do this was to go see an earthship. A guy built an earthship for his home. I knew this guy a long time ago because I'm a musician and I've toured around North America quite a bit with the band I was in. I ran a record label and I was self-employed really for the last quite a few years, actually, booking shows for bands and stuff. So I did get to meet a lot of people along the way, and this guy owned a venue in Toronto that my band played, and he's since moved out here about a decade ago, and he's totally changed his ways. He lives off the grid as much as he can, so I'm going to go meet up with him tomorrow and document his property and see what he's done and ask him some questions about that and do an interview with him and just get firsthand coverage of what it is like to live off the grid. So that's one good thing about the March of Freedom. It's allowed me to just meet all different kinds of people with different concerns. I've talked to teachers, lawyers, people that were working with the United Nations, human rights activists, food advocates, farmers, all sorts of different people from all different walks of life. to hear the problems that they have and try to collectively address them at the same time.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I find that particularly interesting that you're going to be going and checking out an Earth ship, and I can't imagine what that's like in Canada in the winter, but I'm sure, what is it, underground to some degree? Can you talk a little bit about what an Earth ship is for those who don't know?
Well, it's a way to build your home using the earth. Essentially, this guy used tires. He pounded the dirt into the tires to compress the heat in so that it contains the heat inside its natural heating for the home. And he built it all himself. He's using solar panels, so there's no power. He doesn't, when the power goes out in the community that he lives in, he still gets power. So it's all solar powered and stuff. And that's essentially what an earthship is a sustainable home, really, that self-sustains itself as much as possible.
Right.
In the winter, though, he does need a wood stove and stuff. So, but I'm not sure exactly how he has it all set up. That's why I'm really looking forward to tomorrow to go see that firsthand.
Yeah, yeah, you haven't seen that one yet, but I mean, I've looked at pictures of them before, and I think a lot of them they're built very differently. They might put, like glass bottles in the ceiling so that there's lighting through that. There's a lot of different techniques they use in order to come up with the energy that they need, or really conserve the energy that they have. And I think it's very inspirational. A lot of people would look at something like that and think, oh, well, that's somebody that just can't afford a real house. But that's not. That's somebody who says, you know what, I don't want to be dependent upon the control system. And
Yep.
I think they're ahead of their time. Hopefully we see more of that into the future. Now, we're looking at your website, which is of course World Public Union, and I mean it's an impressive looking site. You're telling me you don't use WordPress, you do this by hand HTML. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very nice looking, and looking at the stories you cover, they're absolutely crucial stories too. How do you maintain this while you're doing the March for Freedom or while you're doing other things?
Well, it's been really hard to keep the website updated, actually. That's been very minimal since I've left on the March of Freedom. I left on July 17th, so it's taken me over a month to get to where I am now in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And I was off for injuries for quite a while, too. And also, when I got to Montreal, pretty much, because I was gone for so long and it did take so long to get all that done and get to where I was, I do have a family at home and they miss me a lot and they need me home. I do got to take care of my family, and I'm lucky that my wife is at home right now with good friends and good family back at home, helping her out and helping my family out while I'm doing this. That's really important. But they do miss me a lot, and my wife was saying, if you're going to walk all the way from Montreal to the Maritimes, it's going to take you at least a month more of walking. You're going to risk potential injuries and all sorts of things. And because I was gone for so long, she offered to help me get along part of the way. So I did take a bus ride into the Maritimes to get through that whole area, just so that I could get home sooner, because my kids miss me and I've been gone for a long time, and family's important. They're really important to me to get back home to, and I don't know. I didn't expect it would take as long as it did to get across Eastern Canada. It definitely did take a long time to travel through all those areas and document what I have. So
Canada is a pretty big place. I mean, I look at it on the map. I mean, have you kept track of how many miles you've walked?
Well, walking, I've definitely walked. I can't even really say, because when I'm in a town or a city, I'm walking around that city most of the time to get to where I'm going. Sometimes I've had to use subways and metros and stuff like that just to get around. And also I had speaking arrangements all throughout Southern Ontario. I had seminars and public meetings set up on certain dates, so I had to be in that town on that date. Just like today, right? I had to be on this interview with you tonight, and I have another interview on Friday with the Truther Girls. So I have to be on a Wi-Fi connection on that day. So I've had to strategically plan out how I'm getting places a lot of the time, just so I can be there and make it for the interview and make it on time, because that's really important. I don't want to miss anything. I want to try to spread the truth and talk to people and discuss what's going on in the world as much as possible. And I didn't want to miss any of those meetings, so I did have to get rides to a lot of areas down in Southern Ontario and Ottawa and all that stuff. So that's really helped me get to where I needed to go along the way as well.
Okay, well, I mean, we definitely appreciate you being with us tonight, Mark, and we're looking at a photograph here of you speaking, and what would you say are the types of things that you find most important to educate other people about when you are, for instance, giving a speech?
Well, what I try to do is I try to boil it down to the basics. A lot of people focus on one issue and they could talk about that for hours and hours, which is fine. I'm glad there is experts in certain areas that know pretty much everything about a certain topic. I try to be more diverse with things. I try to learn a little bit about everything instead of a lot about one thing, which is why I've tried to really learn more about all the problems that I've heard about. And a lot of these problems are common problems that are really detrimental to the future of mankind, really. These are involving all sorts of issues. But as I said, I try to boil it down to the most basic points, and that is that we could like food, water, shelter, hydro, electricity, all that stuff is costing us money. We go to our jobs and we're working for that, and then we're paying these industries back the money that we're using the resources for. But these things are needed they're absolutely needed for human survival. If you don't have these things, you will die as a human being. And these companies have figured out, okay, well, that's what we're going to charge money for then. These people are going to work and they're going to work their jobs, and all the money they make is going to go back into the systems that we're supplying for them and we're profiting from, but these people aren't going to profit from it whatsoever. They're just going to pay us for it. So that's what's going on here, is they've figured out how to charge us money for the things we need to survive as human beings, and I find that really wrong. I mean, we're bred and trained from childhood to accept this system, and that's what's going on here, is we accept this system. But we could be somewhere else. We could be in a lot more of an advanced situation in life where we aren't paying for the things we need to survive, and we would have more room financially or whatever means possible to expand ourselves as individuals, to increase our human potential, because our potential is being diminished because we're all going to work. We're tired when we get home. There's all sorts of responsibilities that they throw in that we have to take care of, and it all boils down to money, essentially. A lot of problems too. They're poisoning the food with genetically modified organisms that are making people sick, and they're being banned in other countries. But in North America, Canada, United States, Mexico, all those places, it's still there. They're still selling GMO foods, which are making people sick. There's fluoride in the water supply. Like, that's got to be addressed. All the toxins and stuff that they're putting in the water, that's not right. The wars is another problem. Energy is another problem. They're fueling vehicles from gasoline so that they can the petrol industry can profit and the oil industry can profit while they're polluting the environment in the process. And we should be easily transitioned into solar cars or some other form, like Tesla coils, Tesla technology, to fuel these vehicles where there is no pollution, but they don't care about that. They just want their profits. So there's all sorts of these problems that are very easy to address the problems, and the solutions are very easy as well. We just have to do it. We have to work together and just totally repent against the system that they've created that are holding these injustices in place. Eventually the human race has to evolve enough and say, okay, enough is enough. We're sick of this, and we can live better, and we will live better, and we will have our freedom. So that's why I'm marching for our freedom, really. Right.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I don't know if you saw the video, but the guy in Egypt during the first, the engineered revolution, where he said it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or if you're a Muslim or if you're a Jew, you demand your rights, and we will have our goddamn rights. And and that's what you're saying, Now you bring up resources, and somebody mentioned something to me one time I found pretty interesting, which is, for instance, if we need gas for our vehicle, okay, that gas came from the earth, which really belongs to us all collectively. So why are we paying, this corporation for that, whether it's coal or gas or whatever? Obviously,
or
somebody
water or hydro,
yeah,
anything really.
Exactly.
Everything.
Exactly. I mean, deer don't pay to use the street when they cross it, but we do. I mean, it is like a giant prison system that we've been trapped into believing that we should be a part of, and it takes a lot for a normal person to see things that way and say, you know what, that's it. I'm going to, go like an Eskimo and build an igloo and and not deal with this anymore. And the other thing you mentioned is that we cannot live without it, but I mean, they do, don't they? Don't they just build an igloo and not have electricity?
Yeah, they do. They choose that life to not have electricity, to not have transportation. They do have it, but it's natural. It's not burning fuels. It's not taking fossil fuels out of the earth. They're very in tune with the earth. The native culture and the Eskimos and stuff like that. You know, they're definitely in tune with the Inuit tribes up north. There's still some that exist that just purely eat fish and seal and just they eat off the land. They build igloos. They keep themselves warm that way. That's amazing. You know what I mean? I think that I don't think that we should have to resort to that primal of a state of living, though. I think that we should just all realize that, okay, we should be able to have shelter, warmth, food, water, clothing. All these things we should have them. We shouldn't need to struggle for these things. And even on this journey, I've went without money a couple times or at least to the bare minimum, I had like $4 in Montreal and I had to take a metro to take a bus to get to Quebec. And I knew that if I didn't have money, I would die. You know, I wouldn't be able to buy food or water or anything. And I was running low. I was down to my last bottle of water with $4, and it cost $4 to take the bus to where I needed to go. So it was like, what do I do here? Buy food or buy a bus pass to get me to where I needed to go? And that's another reason why I took a bus ride to Quebec City and then to Rivière-du-Loup, because I was running really low on money at that time. And when I got offered a ride to get me through that, I was like, okay, like at least I'll get to a place where I know somebody, where I could stay at and have a meal if I needed, stuff like that. And that's the thing, right? We live in a world where if you don't have money, you're pretty much out of luck. And that's who I've met a lot of people on this journey who don't have money, and they are out of luck, and they are suffering. They're eating horrible food. They're getting sick. They're dying from it because they're struggling and they're stressed. They're stressing out. They're depressed. They're miserable. They don't even want to live. Some of these people because of money. Really, that's what it is. It's a piece of paper that they don't have, and because of that, they feel that their life is worthless. And unfortunately, there's enough apathy going around in the world right now. Contagious apathy, by the way, because it seems like it's contagious. People don't care. They just, okay, this guy doesn't have food. Good, let him die. Let him suffer. That's disgusting. That there's some people out there with that mentality. Those people should be thrown in psych wards, and they should be treated for their mental disability, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% there. And, you know, I have to think that, I mean, I'm sorry, but a lot of Christians are like that. My own mother was like that. And, you know, she would say something to me because, you know, just like you're talking about all the things that are wrong with the world, that's what we do in the truth movement. And one day she said to me, isn't there anything you're happy about? And I said, yeah, I'm happy there are a few nations out there that are rising up against the New World Order and the control system. And she goes, oh, like who? And I said, well,
Iceland.
yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. I said, well, like Iceland. And she goes, oh, well, they have nude beaches over there. So they're horrible people because they have nude beaches. It doesn't matter that they had the courage to stand up against the evil that is controlling the world because they have nude beaches. They're horrible. You know, she will say, well, if they must have done something wrong or they wouldn't have got pulled over. In other words, the burden, basically everybody's guilty. Everybody's a bad guy. Anybody that's not like her is a bad person. This is a mindset that she's been trained to have, and a lot of the American people have this. How do we overcome that frame of mind when it's so deeply, you know, ingrained in these people?
It is hard to overcome, you know, and I was a victim of it at one point. I will fully admit that I was a victim of the mind control that they put out there, and a lot of people are. And a lot of people are a wolf in sheep's clothing, or a sheep in wolf's clothing. Sorry. That's the best way to describe it. They say they're awake and stuff, but really they're not. They're not. They're just saying they are. To be truly awake, you need to realize the whole thing that's going on. You know what I mean? And you have to be like, no, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Because if you are putting up with it, then you're letting it happen. And there's been many famous quotes out there where people said, you know, if you're not addressing the issues, then you're part of the problem. And they're absolutely right. I know Martin Luther King had a quote like that, and there's a few others that had quotes that were similar. And that's very important to realize. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take for the person, the individual themselves, not a group of people. You can't follow the herd mentality anymore. You got to be, it comes from within. It comes from within the individual. You have to realize, okay, I have the power to change this. You know,
Right, yeah.
I can do this.
Let's talk about that a little bit. in a little more depth, because I mean, the people listening to us at the moment live, most of them understand perfectly well what we're talking about. But this is going to end up on YouTube, viewed by a lot of people who don't understand the truth movement. And myself, when I woke up, I wasn't talking to people. Truth movement. And myself, when I woke up, I wasn't talking to people. I didn't, like you say, follow the herd into the truth movement. There was some sort of spiritual aspect to waking up where I had to face reality. You know, when I saw Building 7 still standing there after they said it collapsed, you know, there was this long list of things that I refused to believe. And at that point, it's like I had to admit, oh my God, they're lying to us about everything. And it was a spiritual decision to confront reality instead of continuing to live the lie. And it seems like so many people, they're refusing to face reality and choose, you know, to live, you know, in accordance with truth, and they're going the other way. And I mean, there's ramifications there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, there's ramifications. I'll be honest with you, on this journey, I've interviewed people that told me to destroy the interview afterwards. One person worked for the United Nations, and she told me after the interview was done and I videotaped it and all that stuff, she told me that she would like me to destroy the interview because she was fearing her job security, and she was fearing for repercussions that would happen to her because of what she said in the interview. And there was also somebody else, Rod Vineau, who was actually an author of the Le Grand Noirceur, the era of the Duplessis orphans in Quebec history. He told me that he wanted to meet up in person in his town of Joliette, Quebec. I went there. I took a metro to his place. It was off the routing where I had to go pretty much. So I took a metro to his place, and I waited in his town for him to send me an email back. And when he did, he said that he had somebody that was coming, a visitor or something like that. That was the day that I was there, you know. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll camp out here in Joliette, and I'll, in the morning or tomorrow at some point, whenever you're free, I'll wait around town here, and we can meet up and have a meeting. And then he told me, I'm sorry, but the best I can do is give you some articles and some information on it. So he sent me a bunch of emails with some references, some news articles on the Duplessis orphans and stuff like that. So that was a really important interview that he canceled, even though he told me in the first email that he sent me that, yes, that if I found my way to Joliette, that we could meet up, and that he worked till 4:30, and then after 4:30 we could meet, or on Saturday and Sunday. On the weekends he was off. And I went to to Joliette on the Friday, and I told him, you know, if you're off Saturday, then we can meet up tomorrow. But he didn't want to do the interview. So I'm not sure if he was scared about something. Maybe he didn't want to do the video interview. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but I thought that was it was pretty unfortunate, anyways, that I went all the way there and had that interview canceled, especially with how important it was. Because he's a very prominent figure with the Duplessis orphans. He knows that the government of Canada and the Catholic Church and the federal government as well, the Quebec government and the federal government were working all in, and the health industry as well, the medical industry, were working together to take children away from their parents and experiment on them medically. And a lot of them were sexually abused, killed, tortured, maimed, disfigured, you name it. There's about 100,000 of them actually that are documented that had these abuses happen to them. And there's very few of them that are alive to this day. And I was really I was really hoping to go to Joliette and actually get a couple interviews of these people that are survivors still. So because there hasn't been any video documentation of these living survivors of that era of Canadian history. So when that happened, it was like, okay, well, this is what's going on. There's people that are scared to talk about what's going on. There's people that are working important positions in government or health or wherever they are working, and they're scared for their jobs. They don't want to be on videos. They don't want to be on interviews talking about this stuff. So it's really unfortunate that people have to fear for their jobs to get the truth out there to help out humanity. And that's what's going on.
Well, I mean, it almost sounds like a case where somebody was like, oh, you know, I want to go ride this roller coaster, but when they got there and they actually saw it, they got scared when you showed up, and he was,
Yeah.
faced with the reality of what might happen to him in his personal life or his job or who knows. I mean, is this incident you're
That's
talking
the world
about?
we're living in.
Oh, go ahead.
That's the kind of world we're living in, where
Yeah,
if you do
yeah.
work for government, you can get killed for talking about it.
Well, and it's not just people who work for government. I mean, we remember after the Boston bombing, Dan Dix went to interview, what was it, the mother or the aunt
Yeah.
of one of them. And she was like, yeah, I'll talk with you. But when he got there, she was scared and she wouldn't speak with him. And it's hard to blame people in these situations because, they want to live. They want to be alive, next week. But this situation you mentioned with these children being abused and experimented on, is this related to, or is this the same as what I heard about children being buried behind schools or churches because they wouldn't?
No.
Okay.
That's a different instance. What I was talking about was the Duplessis orphans, which were children that were taken away from families. Essentially, the Catholic Church was saying if there was a single mother who had children, her children were taken away from her because she was not married and it was against the Catholic Church. So they'd take her children away and put them in a Catholic school or a sponsored orphanage. And at these orphanages and at these schools, they were sexually abused, tortured. A lot of them were taking medications at a very young age that were destroying them, experimental medication. And during this time, actually, it's interesting to point out that after this time, actually, Dr. Ewan Cameron started up MK Ultra in Canada in the same area in Quebec, the same province. So that's got to be part of the same agenda, same group of people. I'm figuring working together. That's what I'm trying to get down. I'm trying to expose that. I'm trying to figure out what's going on there, connect the dots, and finally get the truth out. And that's why I thought it was important that I met with Rod Renault.
Right.
And I did talk about this in the documentary NWO Domino Effect. It was discussed, the Duplessis orphans. But what you're talking about, the bodies buried behind schools, that was actually native residential schools where there was native children that were taken away from their parents and brought to Catholic schools, and then they were tortured, abused, experimented on. Actually, a lot of X-ray experiments were done on the native children where they were overexposed to X-rays, and a lot of them got cancer and died or weren't able to reproduce again. There was a lot of eugenics going on also in these programs, and yeah, they would bury the bodies out right in the schoolyard, and there would be child witnesses that saw this going on, and they talk about it later on, and a lot of them mysteriously died too. Kevin Ann had exposed some of that stuff of the people that just suddenly died before their court appearances and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think that one thing we don't think about enough is how much of the system that exists today is based upon the abuses, the experimentation that they did in the past. For instance, the medications, well, you could say the surgical procedures. I hate to say it, and it sounds harsh, but, they experimented on the Jews in Nazi Germany, and we benefited from that knowledge. The control structure now uses, some of those procedures. And for me,
that's how they did it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I go pretty deep on this stuff, and I describe it as basically a Luciferian. They call the person or the animal being experimented on paper, they call it a sacrifice. And when you're doing a sacrifice in order to acquire knowledge, I see that as a ritual, and that's how I talk about it on air. And now, because of the knowledge they've gained during these rituals in the past, we have an evil control structure that is just making the world a worse and worse place to live. Obviously, a lot of people want to, get off the grid and go back to a more natural lifestyle. And I think that's part of the reason, because they don't want to have anything to do with the medications. They don't want to have anything to do with the health care. They don't want to have anything to do with the control through the money and so on. That's part of the reason, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. They don't want to be part of that anymore, and they just get up and leave. They leave it all behind and start new. They see life for what it is, or not what it is, but what it's become. Because that's not what life is actually. Life is being free. I just imagine being born in a world where you could do what you want. You can make your own decisions as long as it wasn't harming people. That would create a better world, I think, where of equality, where we're all equal. But that's another thing. They want us to be divided. They divide us on purpose, and they shatter your mind in a million pieces so that everything's separated, not collectively together. And that's what they do through TV, through media, through radio, through music. They shatter your mind into a million pieces so that you're confused and lost in this world of unlimited possibilities, you know. And that's how they divide us. That's why there's activists that are divided. Like even in small little communities, there's activists who won't work together because of basic little personal problems or social issues they have with each other. Something one person likes, the other one doesn't like, so they chose not to work together, even though what they're working on is going to benefit humanity. Uh, that's how they divide us, you know. And they
Well,
it's like
it's
black and white, love, hate, Republican, conservative, communist, socialist. You got all these names for people that think in a certain way, and that's meant to divide us all as well. That's meant to cause divisions because if we weren't divided, we'd be united and working together for the common cause of goodness.
it's interesting you mentioned that because I was, kind of scheduled to speak at this march on DC on September 11th this year, and it was originally called the Million Muslim March, or at least that's how the mainstream media was trashing it. And I'm thinking, we should be working the truth activists should be working with the Muslims. And, some other liberty activists, truth activists were kind of in on it too. And then it kind of broke up over some division because a Democrat was involved or something. And so that's an example of something just falling apart. And I don't know, maybe it was some Democrat-controlled thing that wouldn't have been good, but, I mean, that's what we see happening all the time in the truth movement. So that's a great point that you make.
Yeah, they want to smash us into a million pieces so that we're disconnected. But we got to be like the T-1000 in Terminator 2. We got to blob ourselves back together. You know, you lose an arm, okay, well, just get back together. The whole unit, all of us together. Like this can't be one person. As soon as you put your ego in play, that's when you lose it. If you have an ego and you're just trying to benefit everything for yourself and you're doing it all for yourself, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's why a lot of people see that in activists too. You know, you got a speaker or somebody in your community that's doing something and they're like, oh, this guy here or this girl here is trying to take all the spotlight and stuff, when really all they're doing is working their butts off to make a difference. But sometimes they do let their egos get in the way, and then somebody doesn't like that. And we gotta be doing this for each other, for humanity as a whole. That's one thing I've learned on this journey as well, is we gotta do it together. Like, you can't be divided, you can't be separated. We gotta be the sword that just cuts through, you know?
Right. Yeah, I did a series on Romans 13, and that really helped me mature in my activism because, it came down to loving your neighbor. And again, the conflict with the Christian community, and again, I am a Christian, but, my mother or a lot of Christians would think that what I'm doing is a waste of time or, whatever. But all I'm doing is I love my neighbor. I want them to know the truth. I don't want them to be subject to the control system. And that's all we're doing is we care enough about humanity. We care enough about the people around us that we want them to know what they need to know to make intelligent choices rather than walking into a trap, lining up for vaccination. My sister's daughter now has an autoimmune disease because she got over-vaccinated, and this is happening constantly. It looks like we lost your video. Can you still hear me? All right, so we have, for the moment at least, lost our guest. I'll hang up and try to get him back. Sometimes this will happen. It's no big deal. I can fill the time on my own, but I don't want to have to do that. And he is on a Wi-Fi connection because he is on his March of Freedom here, and you see it right there. At least you did. And we're talking with Mark Howitt, author of NWO: The Domino Effect. And this interview might be coming to a close, so I'm going to go ahead and let him know that I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. Looks like we lost you. Call back when you can. He says, weird, just got disconnected. Okay, let's answer this. And, okay, got you back, and your video is trying to come up. Okay, we are back on with Mark Howitt, and these things happen. It's no big deal. Just in case we lose you again, can you go ahead and plug your documentary? Is it a documentary? I mean, what do you call that kind of thing? NWO Domino Effect.
Yeah, NWO Domino Effect is a documentary that I made. I also made a bunch of other ones. I made the James Holmes Conspiracy, Sandy Hook, the documentary, Eye of the Illuminati, 2012 Revolution, World Awakening, Malcolm X by Whatever Means Necessary, How to Kill a President, RFK Bloodline Assassins, Formation of Resistance.
Wow. Hey, you know what? Let's go through these one at a time so we can talk about each one. Okay, you mentioned the James Holmes thing. This was this a Batman shooter?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Aurora, Colorado shooter.
Okay.
And who they say is the shooter anyways.
Right. Now, since you're making these documentaries on it, obviously you studied up on what was going on. My information is that there was somebody in the theater with a cell phone, and when he was cued, he got up, walked out the back of the theater, put something in the door so it could be reopened. Then people came in, one of them with a strobe light behind him. More than one incendiary device was thrown in the room. And is that information correct? And what would you add to it?
I'm not sure about the propping of the door. I do know that somebody took a phone call in the theater and left. Now they're trying to say that was James Holmes, I believe, but I don't think it was. I think that was somebody else that was part of it. Also, the person inside the theater, there was more than one incendiary device, like you said. There was smoke bombs and stuff like that set off in the theater. So nobody actually saw the shooter. Nobody, not one person in that theater saw who it was shooting. The person was wearing full body armor from head to toe, covered. There was no skin showing whatsoever. The person was shooting people in the theater. And then James Holmes apparently is around the back of the building, parked outside in his car, sitting there all dazed and just waiting to be caught, really. And they found a second gas mask near the end of the theater as well, indicating that somebody with a gas mask ran away and got a considerable distance behind the building before dropping their gas mask and escaping. So there's all sorts of anomalies with that case. The witnesses saying there was more than one person in there. Just the fact alone that nobody witnessed James Holmes doing the crime or shooting anybody should be enough that he's innocent. And then you look at him in court, he's all dazed and drugged out. He can't remember anything. He's non-reciprocal pretty much. So you got all these problems with that case that just don't add up, and I tried to expose as much of it as I could. Mind you, I made the documentary like right after the crime happened.
Okay.
I tried to soak up all the early news reports because those are the most important ones. You get the rare interviews early on, and then the media will suppress those interviews later on. So that's why when something like that happens, I try to get it on it as early as possible to get videos about it. Sandy Hook, I started a bit after that happened.
Well, let's not move on to Sandy Hook yet. Let's take them one at a time because I'm still on the James Holmes thing. You know how they use fake Oh, go ahead.
I wrote a letter to the Innocence Project of Colorado to try to get them to look at his case because they work with people who are on death row to get them off, and they've had a high percentage rate, but they said they can't do it unless they have DNA evidence. The thing is with the James Holmes case is there's so much other evidence that's not really DNA. Like they were clean about it. Whoever the team was that was orchestrating that event. I would say it's a team because there had to have been more than one person on there. And there was also on the police audio, if you listen to the police scanners during the shooting and all that, you'll hear officers saying, yeah, I'm going to find another suspect.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I've got on my YouTube channel the entire dispatch audio. If anybody wants to find that, just go to YouTube and put in, I don't know, Batman shooter dispatch audio. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that really sticks out to me about that, and I believe he was in the car the whole time, and there was a team that did it, there was what I can only call a fake witness, just like after 9/11, there was a girl, and I don't know if you saw the video of this, and she actually described the situation inside the theater, and her description was so ludicrous. She said, quote unquote guts were flying everywhere. And anybody knows, when people get shot, their guts don't go flying out unless, we're talking about a shotgun and they're like at just the right distance. Yeah, I mean, it was insane. So just the fact that they have a fake witness there, I mean, it's just insane. And the other thing is we never hear from these people again. Remember, he went to one of the court appearances and he said something which some people interpreted as, what, thanks for the free kill? And other people said, no, he said, thanks for the free pill. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they were drugging him the whole time. They still are. I think he was involved in some sort of psych operation. I'm almost sure of it. And he was studying at the Salk Institute, which has a history behind it, obviously. There's all sorts of things that he was involved with that just make it really questionable. I don't know, that whole case is just, it needs to be exposed for what it is, really.
Yeah.
People need to learn that was done intentionally by somebody that was a group of people, actually, that planned it out very well.
Absolutely. And again, we're talking with Mark Howitt. And what is the name of the documentary that you did on that?
The James Holmes Conspiracy.
Okay. And now let's move on to Sandy Hook. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Sandy Hook is another one where there was something going on there that didn't make sense. There's all sorts of things like nobody saw him in the school shooting, Adam Lanza. Adam Lanza was a mysterious character who just suddenly went missing a few years before the shooting, and then he just popped up one day to shoot up the school. Doesn't make any sense. His death certificate that was published at first said that he died the day before. That's all documented in the documentary I made showing people the date of his death. His mother's date was still the day of the shooting, which they claim happened, but his death was the day before. So it's almost like he was brought in there and placed in there to be the patsy. And the car that pulled up, that he apparently drove to the school, all four doors were open and there was multiple jackets laying on the ground outside it. You see this in early crime scene photos, but then afterwards you see all the doors closed and the jackets are picked up, and then they're using those images of the car as the car, like these are the images, this is the car he drove. They don't show you the doors open, they don't show you how it was actually parked right after it got there. So that indicates that there was multiple people inside the vehicle getting out and running in the school. There's also the police audio saying we've got multiple suspects. They did detain a few suspects. We never heard who they were. We never heard anything about them. We just heard that there was one guy who was a parent of a kid. His name was released. But the other people that were arrested in the bush and all that stuff, their names weren't released. And when they were detained, they were brought to the police vehicle and they were in the front seat of the vehicle. You don't put a suspect in the front seat of a police vehicle unless they're a police themselves or some sort of military unit or some sort of intelligence agent.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I heard, was that was a police officer from another city or something.
That's what the media says in one, I think it was a local newspaper article, that they said that it was an officer from another district.
But he was running away from the school, wasn't he?
He was running away from the police, yeah. So as soon as he saw the police chasing him, he ran. He was trying to get away. Yeah. And then there was a van with nuns in it that was driving away that they were looking for all day, all in the police scanner. It's there. You can hear them looking for the vehicle. There's also the weapons that Adam Lanza brought in the school, apparently, like all the ammunition, all the weapons that he had in there, plus the precision shooting that he was doing in the school, killing all those people very effectively, very quickly, and then killing himself. It all just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what was the kill percentage? Didn't he kill like almost every bullet killed somebody, didn't it?
Yeah, the ballistics were just excuse the language, but just so accurate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to be that accurate in a hectic situation.
Yeah. And then you have the media saying, "Oh yeah, well he was practicing shooting with his mother. His mother used to take him out, and they would practice shooting at the range." But a reporter decided to see if that had any credibility to it, and went around to all the gun ranges and found no records of Nancy Lanza or Adam Lanza ever taking shooting lessons. So it's all just set up. And then the weapons that they're using, that were used in that, were all like, very professional firearms. Really, they're not too common. And just the way they were used just seems like it was some sort of agent or something inside doing the damage. bringing the body in, which would indicate while the doors were open. Maybe they had him wrapped in jackets and a couple jackets fell off while they were bringing him in. Maybe that's why there's jackets in the photograph. I mean, all these things are worth looking into. There's got to be some witnesses around. I mean, Roy Lowe is a perfect witness. I was doing a radio show with Joyce Riley on the Power Hour, and we actually tried calling Roy Lowe. Well, they did. The studio claims they tried calling him before to get him on the show, but they couldn't get an answer. Like the number was disconnected. So that's
Wow.
pretty strange. But he's the guy who witnessed the police officer in the front of the vehicle, and he said it right on the interview. The news reporters were told not to videotape the suspects that they detained, so they were trying to cover it up for sure.
Okay, now another interesting thing that I notice here is that with Nancy Lanza, weren't they hinting that she was a truther, or she might, be like a truther? And then
A
with
prepper, yeah.
yeah, with each of these psyops, they have gotten more and more open with saying, okay, like they say, what is it, the mother or the aunt of the Boston bomber is a truther. This keeps coming up more and more. And in this march we were going to do on September 11th, they were basically calling truth activists terrorists on Fox News, So it's coming out, and it's always coming out in a negative light. And, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a smear campaign against all activists. They're going to probably do it more and more coming up. They're gonna try to do more or orchestrate more events and blame people that are trying to make a difference and that care about humanity as the culprits. So what they're doing is they're turning people who have love in their hearts and making them seem like they're hateful. They're painting the wrong portrait. That's what they're good at. You know what I mean? The word Hollywood comes from Merlin's staff, because Merlin's magic wand was made of Hollywood. It was made of the Hollywood tree. So that's where that whole thing comes from, because it's all magic, right? They're just playing with us. They're making illusions. They're creating an elusive world, and we're all, not all of us, but there's a lot of people that have fallen victim to that, and it's our job, I think, to wake them up and pull the blindfold off their eyes and say, look, here we go. I know you're a bit scared right now, but just take my hand and we'll get through this together, That's
Absolutely.
what we got to do.
Absolutely. Now let's go from Hollywood to Pollywood. I'm not sure if you've heard that term, but I suspect that you have. And,
Actually, I haven't. Hollywood, never.
okay,
haven't
well,
heard of
Pollywood is a term used to describe like a Palestinian Hollywood, where it is said that Arabs use basically crisis actors. They stage events and use crisis actors, like is alleged to have happened at the Boston bombing, and they recently, allegedly got caught using crisis actors in Syria. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts? Because you seem like a really smart guy that really digs into things. What are your thoughts on the allegations of crisis actors at the Boston bombing?
Well, the Boston bombing incident, there's that guy, the amputee, who there wasn't really a tourniquet around his leg. I
Right.
noticed in the pictures. I was looking at the pictures, and it seemed like that kind of injury, he would have died easily.
Yeah, and especially if you sit him up in a wheelchair, I mean, his blood should have been flowing out the bottom, and
Yeah.
you can see a close-up where somebody's allegedly holding something around his arm, and it's not tight around him.
Exactly.
It's just wide open. So
That injury, you would have lost so much blood instantly. It would have just got your heart pumps out so much blood. It just would have all came out of the arteries that were disrupted, and it would just bleed out all over the place, causing death.
right.
So there is a lot of
Yeah, but
the
it's like
Boston bombing.
it's like we're saying something, and it's like your eyes are seeing something, and your mind doesn't want to, believe it because it's so outlandish. How do you think the truth movement should deal with situations like that, where it's just like, oh my God, nobody's going to believe this?
Well, we just got to remain vigilant, I think, and I think it's working because walking across Eastern Canada and traveling to all these different communities and walking through communities, essentially, I've talked to so many people, and a lot of people are aware of what's going on. It's amazing. It's like they know what's going on, and they know a little bit about this and a little bit about that, and they actually see the world for the way we see it, even like how there is a lot of corruption going on, which is really good. That means that we're actually waking people up, that people like us that are talking about this stuff, independent news, just everybody, even at school, at coffee shops, they're talking about this kind of thing as common conversation now, which is good. I think that this kind of stuff, the truth movement, should become like it should become a trend. You know what I mean? Uh, Justin Bieber and all that stuff is kind of trendy right now. That's what they're trying to put in there to make trendy for us so that we'll all get suckered into that and buy into that. But really, I think when the truth becomes trendy, I think then we'll really see a difference, and that'll mold mainstream media as well, and it'll force them to cover the stories that are truthful and really important. And it's just going to take all of us to be awake about it and just not take no for an answer. We got to send letters and emails to these people and tell them our concerns, sign petitions, let them know that we're not going to take it. Because a lot of people, they just post on their Facebook. They'll post an article here and there, or that's what they spend their whole day doing, really, is just data mining, which is good. It's good to data mine and spread information and give resources out to people. But when that's all you do, and there is serious problems that are needing to be dealt with, we got to take action at some point, you know?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Gotta take action.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap this up pretty soon, Mark. Let me see if I can let you get through your list of documentaries without having to like talk more about one of them now. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so you want me to just rename them?
Yeah, just go ahead and name them so people can find them on the internet if they want to watch them.
Okay. Well, I would suggest anybody who hasn't seen any of my films to check out NWO Domino Effect. That's the most recent one I made. That one deals with a lot of issues that I'm actually doing the March of Freedom about. Really important stuff that affect all human beings, I think. And then there's Sandy Hook, the documentary, which we talked about. The James Holmes conspiracy, which we also talked about. Eye of the Illuminati is another good one that I made. That one deals with a whole variety of issues, secret societies, royalty, colonization, the history of humanity, just all sorts of things. Mind you, when I was researching that, I did put a couple things in there that I now feel differently about, more so with the theory of evolution and all this stuff. So it is older material. It's from 2012. But I'm always learning, so I'm always trying to put out what I've learned about. So Eye of the Illuminati is really good, though. It deals with a lot of psychological issues as well as mind control issues and stuff like that. And before that, there was 2012 Revolution, which has to do a lot about the Arab Spring, the Egypt uprising, and why that was all happening. It also deals with colonization and political control and corruption. And before that, I made Evidence of Murder, which is actually split into a bunch of documentaries. You can find them on YouTube. How to Kill a President is about John F. Kennedy assassination. That one's been banned outright on YouTube from what last I checked. There was no audio on it, I believe. So it's just you can watch the video, but you can't hear anything that's said.
Wow.
And there's RFK Bloodline Assassins, which is about Robert F. Kennedy, who was also assassinated by... It is my theory and many others that it was by the CIA. Actually, I wouldn't call it a theory. I'd call it a fact if you look at the documentaries and all the videos out there. Definitely. So there's also Malcolm X, By Whatever Means Necessary. That one there deals with Malcolm X's murder, his assassination by the FBI and members of the government. And there's the first one I made was called The Formation of Resistance, that one's very amateurish. It was just like, I was just learning how to do video editing at that time. And I was just really starting to learn about a lot of things, but that deals with 9/11 and war, religion, just a bunch of things like that, just to try to better explain and piece things together. And that was made in 2009. So those are the documentaries that I have made and that are on YouTube. And there's also a bunch of interviews that I've done, which also explain a lot of things, and they're more current, I'd say, too.
Okay, well, Mark, that's that's an impressive list. I haven't made a single documentary yet, and I've been in this for a while, so, that's totally awesome. And again, your website is World Public Union. Is there any other websites or anything you want to go ahead and plug?
Well, yeah, worldpublicunion.org is the website that I'm running. World Public Union essentially is exactly that. It's a world public union. It's all over the world. It's publicly operated and it's a union. So it's people that are truthers, people that are aware who want to make a difference, activists, all sorts of people that are wanting to work together in their community. They can start up a World Public Union there and share resources with other World Public Unions around the world, share ideas, get the news out, get information out there, and just really work together on a local level to make changes that we want to see. And that's why the World Public Union was started. That's why the website's up there and all that stuff. So it is good that people are starting to learn about it more and wanting to become involved. And essentially, it's a group without a leader. It's a group of leaderless leaders. We're all our own leaders. We all have to take power and control back over our lives, and that's what the World Public Union is about: is to give that power back to the people, and so that they can work together locally and be united with other people that have the same interests, essentially. So it's like it's a system of self-governance, I think. Is really the best way to describe it.
Now, let me ask you this, Mark, because on your website, on the March of Freedom, it says a reality show about our reality. Are you starting a show of some sort?
Yeah, the March of Freedom is entirely a reality show. I've been documenting along the way the whole time, videos, taking tons of videos of people I've talked to, places I've been, buildings that were made, monuments. I've knocked on the front doorsteps of Freemason lodges. I've been to Stephen Harper's front doorstep to deliver him a letter. I mean, I'm going to as many places as I can to document firsthand what's going on and some of the problems and offering solutions. I've been trying to solve some of the problems myself along this journey by going to these places to talk to people about what's going on in the world and what's really going on behind their closed doors, you know?
Wow.
So that's another thing. I've documented all this, homeless people, doctors, teachers, all these people that are concerned about what's going on and they want to help. So I'm meeting with all sorts of good people as well in Moncton and Halifax. I should have some good stuff lined up there, especially with the Earthship tomorrow. So I've been documenting it all along the way, and I'm going to make a season of episodes, which will document everything. Instead of a documentary, I decided to change it up a bit and do a reality show this time, just to make it try something different with the video skills that I have. So.
Well, that's really awesome, Mark. And I just want to put on record, I mean, if you ever want to become a regular broadcaster, you'd be more than welcome to join Truth Broadcast Network.
Oh, for a radio program?
Yeah, I mean, it's not radio. I mean, it's video. You're on like video right now. It's all video. But I mean, it's audio also. We have an audio stream and all that kind of stuff. It's all automated. But anyway,
yeah, that's funny that you say that, because a lot of people have told me you need to get a radio show. You really need to get on air and talk to people, because you got some good concerns, and that's something I was actually considering a lot, especially since I'm almost done the March of Freedom now. I was thinking of going back and maybe starting my own show or something, just to get good guests on and try to address the problems more, because I don't want to stop here, you know. The March of Freedom, I know it's almost done. I've made it across Eastern Canada and I've talked to lots of people, but I don't want to stop there.
It looks like we might have lost your feed again. Hopefully we didn't. But pretty much looks like we've lost Mark again for the moment. And so I'll hang up. And let's see, that call was excellent, right? Except actually it cut off. I shouldn't have said excellent, but let's see if we can bring him back on. Okay, Mark, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah.
Okay, well anyway, we're wrapping up, but when you're ready to broadcast, just get a hold of me and we'll bring you on board, okay?
Cool, yeah, well, I'll be in touch for sure.
Okay,
that's
Mark.
Something I'd love to do, for sure.
All right, you're very impressive to me with the documentaries, with the going around directly confronting people. I really like you, and I look forward to talking with you again. You have a good night.
Yeah,
All right. Okay. A little bit of a audio issue or video issue or internet issue. I don't know there, but wow. Very impressive guest there. This is not... he's not a fair weather activist, is he? He's up there in Canada, and he's beating the streets. I mean, I go up to New York and I go to other places and do street actions. That's what we call them, street actions, where you're handing out flyers, talking to people, truth, and confronting the New World Order operatives at the, Bilderberg Convention or the CFR or the ADL or the United Nations or whatever. But I mean, this guy's walking across Canada and most importantly, talking to normal people, everyday people, and talking about what's going on. In other words, he's getting out of the normal spectrum of activism, and that's really great. And who knows, maybe one day he will be a host here on Truth Broadcast Network. And so thank you guys for tuning in. And once again, that was Mark Howitt, worldpublicunion.org. I'm out for the night. Death to the New World Order.
Truth. Broadcast Network. Truth. Broadcast. Broadcastnetwork.com. Truth. Broadcast Network. Truth. Broadcastnetwork.com.
All right, so welcome back to another broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I am Death to the New World Order. And tonight we're going to be speaking with Mark Howitt, who is not only a frontline activist, but he's actually marching across Canada in order to, well, I mean, it sounds like you're going to, work towards confronting Stephen Harper with questions from people that you're running across on your journey. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I went to his house there not too long ago.
Oh, okay. And how did that go?
Well, I was confronted by massive gates with pike gates and video cameras all over, all along the property, tripod cameras. So many video cameras, I couldn't even count them all. And at the gate, they wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't even accept the letter that I wrote to deliver to his house. I was confronted by an RCMP officer who was very nice. He was actually supportive of what I was doing. He said that the world is corrupt and full of greed and hate, and he thought that I was doing a noble thing. But he wasn't allowed to accept the letter, so he went inside to his officer's booth and got me the address where I could mail the letter to, so that it would get to the proper person. It wouldn't be Stephen Harper, I'm sure. He's probably got a whole bunch of people that scan letters and filter them and stuff. So
right, yeah. All right. Well, just by way of introduction, Mark Howitt is the filmmaker of New World Order Domino Effect, among other things. And I took a look at that the other night, and one part really stuck out to me, which is that scene where it's showing the starving Africans and the filmmaker there. I mean, it's so unbelievably disappointing. And we hear about all this mad amount of money that's allegedly going to aid the Africans, but I mean, what's really going on here? How do we still have this situation? Was that a scene that you pulled from somewhere else? I mean, what kind of information do you have on that?
Well, that was a group that went out to Africa, actually, to document it. They were a religious group, a Christian group, that were funded to go out there and document that and make a video about it to spread awareness about the starvation going on there. But we still hear about it. It still exists. And why is that? It's because the charity programs and all these groups and organizations that are put together to address the issues are actually profiting from the market. It's a very profitable business. And that's what they're doing. They're profiting from the donations that are given by the good people to try to help the world. And you're not only seeing this with the starving African children donations and things like that to aid those people over there, but you're also seeing this in the cancer industry. Run from the Cure, breast cancer, all those things are big scams who are sucking big money out of the people who are donating their hard-earned money to try to find a cure for cancer, when there already is many cures, natural cures, that are suppressed and not profitable to the industry, so they choose to disregard these cures and keep on promoting chemotherapy and surgeries and harmful remedies that are just going to make you more sick with new illnesses or increase the disease. So that's what's going on. It's a big scam, and people are not aware of it yet. They haven't really dug enough to find the truth.
Okay, Mark. Now, just by way of introduction, so are you saying your March of Freedom is done, that you've come to a conclusion with that? And how, what else would you like to mention before we, move forward?
Well, it's not done yet. I still have to go to Moncton and Halifax along this way. So there is a bit of distance still to cover, but it is coming close to an end. I left my hometown of Sudbury, Ontario, and I walked as far as I could until I got to until I got some pretty bad injuries on my feet. There's some videos that are on Facebook that show that, and I had to go to the hospital, and then they told me that I needed to take a bus to Barrie, which got me to the 400 highway. So the 400 and 401 highways, which is what connects all of Southern Ontario to all the major cities and stuff, I couldn't walk on those highways. It's illegal and very dangerous to walk on them, especially when you're pulling supplies behind you. So I had to get rides around that area and bus rides and stuff. So I did stop in a lot of communities, though, like tons of communities, and talked with lots of people about what's going on and tried to learn about solutions to these problems and figure out what really needs to be done to change things for the better.
Okay, and
That exist, warfare, like war should not be solved with war. That's a bottom line. You can't solve violence by using violence. It's never worked in the past. It's just escalated and caused more deaths. So there's a lot of problems in the world, and I find the solutions all rely on the truth, really.
right.
They all, you just boil it down, it's very basic and primitive, the truth. But they put out all these things that make it really technical and hard to figure out, and it distracts the mind. They love using distractions, and it keeps people away from finding the truth. But once you find the truth, you know it's the truth, and that's what they call the rabbit hole. Once you start digging, you can't get out. You just keep going for that truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, they say that the first step to solving a problem is admitting that you have it. And as we have people going around pretending that we were attacked by the Muslims on 9/11 or whatever else, they're just ignoring the fact that they even have a problem. You can't solve it. But, I mean, it's somewhat encouraging to see how few people support this military action in Syria. And it does seem like the world is waking, yet I mean, they're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. What do you think will happen long term here? Will the people recognize, well, it doesn't matter what we think, it doesn't matter what we want, these evil people are going to go ahead and send our sons and our daughters overseas to die killing innocent people? I mean, do you think that this is going to have any long-term impact?
Definitely. If they do start war, if they do actually send bombers over there and they do drop the bombs, then yeah.
You know, your movie NWO Domino Effect, you know, talks about solutions as well. Are there any in particular that you'd like to go over here?
Well, a lot of them deal with the truth, which is awesome. You have the Truth Broadcast Network. You're broadcasting the truth. So I commend you for your efforts in spreading awareness about these issues, because it's really important that we do learn the truth about what's going on in the world. And the media is lying to us most of the time. They do give half-truths out in their stories and stuff, but essentially they have an agenda. Look what's going on in Syria right now. We're about to enter one of the largest wars in history, in human history, because of the technology we have. And nobody cares. People are too busy wondering why Ben Affleck is playing Batman and why Miley Cyrus is naked on stage. You know, that's what people care about. And even the CNN person was saying that that's what's getting likes, is people, the Hollywood stars they choose and they select and they breed and they put in for us to absorb and spend money on. So we're avoiding all the problems while the problems are taking place, and it's pretty sad. I am noticing a big change, though, where people are waking up and starting to be a bit more concerned about this stuff, which is really good to see. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on, and it all boils down to the truth. We got to find the truth here. We got to figure out what's really going on, and once we find the truth, that's what's going to set us free. So with the cures being suppressed, that's a truth that we should know about. The harmful nuclear programs